everybody, and welcome to my railroad. My name is Bob Young, and I modeled the Pennsylvania Railroad from 1947 to 1958, the transition era. This is a prototypically freelanced Pennsylvania Railroad. It's a combination of two plans. It's a John Armstrong, St. Clair, and Southwest Railroad, and Al Nastarione's Pennsylvania Railroad and Western. Both of those railroads gave me an idea of what I could do in this space. The John Armstrong layout, the one problem that I have with that is that there's no staging track, and I wanted a staging area for operations and for train storage. And the one that I have and the one that I built is a double-ended staging yard with a helix on one end and a helix on the other, so that trains can come in from both directions. And behind the staging yard is a main line that runs straight the length of the wall. So trains can disappear and they can come back. The reason I got into the Pennsylvania Railroad was I had a great-great-grandfather. His name was J.O. Young, and he was an engineer on the Pennsylvania Railroad. He worked there for 47 years. And my dad was the one that got me interested in HO. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be into trains at all. So he taught me a lot, and we built a layout, an atlas layout, and came down here. I moved it down here and ran it for about 8 years. And then I went to a convention in town, and I saw how far railroading had come. And I was like, this is going to be interesting. So I wanted to build a new layout, and I joined the National Model Railroad Association and got up with a group of men, and the name of the group is the Chattahoochee Express. And together, using their talents, we were able to build this layout. Some stats about the layout. I modeled the Pennsylvania Middle Division, transition era. That allowed me to have steam and diesels. I wanted horseshoe curve, which I did, and you'll see a lot of the towers are all Pennsylvania towers to give it that Pennsylvania flair. The layout itself is 25 feet by 16 feet. It's multi-layered, and it's basically a folded dog bone with a double-ended staging yard with two helix on both ends. The rail is code 83 Shannara, and as well as the turnouts. And they're powered by tortoises. I also wanted a yard where I could do steam facilities and diesel facilities, as well as making up trains. Also, I wanted a passenger station so that I could run passenger trains, along with head-end cars, which would go over to the REA building. The staging yard has 9 tracks, one being the main line running through it, and they run the length of the room. So there's plenty of room there for storage of trains. This is the layout sketch that I first saw, and I figured that this would fit into my basement. This is Ray Nastarione's Pennsylvania Railroad, and it's also based with the John Armstrong Railroad also. As you can see, it had a lot of things that I wanted. One, it has a coal facility, mine and coal facility, horseshoe curve, stations, and a large yard, okay, with a steam service facility. And over here I put a diesel service facility. This railroad was built for operation So there are many different points on here that people can set out and pick up uh, freights, passengers, um, in the course of an operating session. The first helix that we built came after the staging yard. All right, so this is the first helix, and we really didn't know where we were going to locate it until we came up the helix and saw where we could tie it into the railroad up on top. The same with the other helix. It's a double-ended staging yard, so you can come in from both sides. This is the west end of it, and these are all turnouts that have toggles and tortoises. So if you're bringing a train out, you just follow the directions and get it out. The other thing, in the center of the yard, you can't have all these trains sitting in here without sapping power. So all of these tracks have cutoffs. If you want a train, you have to turn it on first, and then if you're going out that way, you go down to this end and use the turnouts down here. Or if you're going the opposite way, you use that one there. And as you come up, there's a train coming out here, and this is the east end of the helix. This is where we figured we could tie it in. It comes from the east end of the yard through that helix. This is Horseshoe Curve, all right? And it's a famous national landmark. This is the main focus of the middle division, is the Horseshoe Curve. If you look at the end of the Horseshoe Curve, obviously it's scaled down. The Horseshoe Curve is huge. But I wanted to capture some of the flavor of it, and the souvenir stand was scratch built. And what I've done at the front part of Horseshoe Curve is to try to capture the flavor of it. You'll see the inverted horseshoe and the flagpole. Down on the bottom, you have a cabin car that was on display, and that's the correct number for it also. And as you got up to the main part, the viewing area of the curve, there was a K4 Pacific engine that they had on display there. So that was there, plus the flagpole, and you had a pump house. So, basically, so if you looked at this particular part of the Horseshoe Curve, you would definitely recognize what it looked like and where it is on the curve. So also you see on the curve the 4-track main line, which works pretty well because I can also use that as a staging track, because I have two of these tracks that are staging area also. They can be cut off, and I can stage trains there. This is Altoona Station, and I wanted to have this as part of the yard also. The big problem that I had with it was Altoona Station was not elevated. I borrowed this design from George Bloodworth, and that allowed me to lift it up and put the passenger tracks underneath so that I could finally have a passenger operation. Next to the station itself is an REA building where I run head-end cars out of there. And over here I have wash racks for the cars. And that track goes down to the end, and there's a commissary there, which is another stop for passenger trains. And each one, there's 7 tracks here for the passenger trains. Also, each one of these has its own cutoff, so trains aren't sitting there drawing power. And I had to tie it in to someplace. Where's it coming from? So I had built the bridge and ran it off the layout. Over here we have the power company and a fuel tank company. This is 2 more stops that we can operate on. And so you have the coal cars coming in, you've got tank cars there. The next area we come to is the work train area. I wanted to also have an area dedicated to work trains. So this is where I was able to put it. The next area is the steam service facility, which is one of the areas I also wanted to have. So we have your coal tower, you have your sand operations, you have your cinder drop, and all the way down the track there, you have oil for some of the later steam engines, mainly Santa Fe's that they leased, that were oil. So, and then as you come to the turntable, we have the roundhouse. And there's another diesel servicing facility there also, and Allied Rail Rebuilders on the other side. Now, this is another stop where they rebuild cars. That's why you see this one coming out. It's fairly clean. It's been chopped. As you come down a little bit, you'll see a freight house. And we also do truck trains out of here, which is another stop. This particular yard tower is one of my favorites. It was built by a really good friend of mine, Bob McIntyre, who is no longer with us, but also modeled the Pennsylvania Railroad and was an excellent modeler and really helped me in doing the Pennsylvania Railroad. The other part of the yard that I wanted to put in here was the icing facility for reefers. So that's another stop that I have in here in the yard for trains as they come through. Coming now to some of the towns that are on the layout. This is Johnstown, and you have your police department, your fire department, your different buildings, your pawn shop, a typical town, and a gas station and a church. This particular station is Johnstown, which is another whistle stop for our passenger lines. We have a small whistle stop called Randyville, which is another stop for passenger trains. Then we have the tenements, and down here we have used cars. I like cars, so this is where the kids hang out, so there's all different sports cars and whatnot there. And then you've got to have a supermarket, so there's a supermarket there also. Moving west, we come to a river scene that I wanted to do. We also have, two bridges going over here, and this is the Conemaugh River that flooded Johnstown. So that's my river scene that I wanted to do. One particular thing that I added to this was a mirror in the background so that it made the river look like it went on forever out there. And I thought it came out pretty well. And next we come west to a particular switching area that I made. And what you'll see here is you have Centennial Mills in the background, which is, for a switching operation. We have a pickle works, and then we have a produce facility down here, and then the Golden Flame Fuel Company over here, followed by a tavern and a pool hall in there, just to keep everybody happy. Next, we come to a coal company, which is another switching move, and we have sand and coal delivered here and picked up. Up in the back on the upper level, there's another station. It's called Livingston. It's fictional, and this is where I grew up. We didn't have a railroad station. As you're moving further down, you see MG Tower, and in the background there's a milk facility, and some of our local trains will pick up milk as they're doing their local runs, which is another stop. In this particular area, I always like to have a residential area, This is more prototypical of New Jersey, where I'm from, than the Pensy, okay? But I just wanted to have this, and here it is. The curve was built in the 1800s to get over the Allegheny Mountains, and that's how they did it. It's an engineering wonder. Also, you see here the Altoona Reservoir, which was also part of Horseshoe Curve. Well, you can't have the Pennsylvania Railroad without having coal. And so this is my coal mine. We have this part here, and it's another switching move where we pick up empties and swap out for full loads. And over in the background here, we have the company offices. So this particular area has several switching moves. There's a move by the offices. There's a Y also underneath there where you can turn engines around. Another thing I wanted to add to the railroad, which New York Central and the Pensy did, was the water troughs. This way they could pick up water on the fly. Pensy had to slow down to 25 miles an hour because they had no pressure relief valve. Thank you for coming today and visiting my layout. I'd like to thank the Chattahoochee Express for helping me get this going, and the National Model Railroad Association for the information that they've given me. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my wife Kathy for putting up with me and being very patient while I built this. Thanks for coming.